Welcome, welcome to Learning in Action's Heal the Divide Podinar series. Today, our theme is real team coaching. Coaching competencies and action with my lovely, you will learn how lovely guest, Georgina Woudstra, who I'll give a proper introduction to in just a moment. I'm Allison, you probably know by now. I've got my teammate with me, Dana Beasley. Thank you, Dana, for being here. We do these podinars because of our mission. We aim to heal the divide within and between people. And we see these podinar series as a way to just begin our little part of doing that. So what's a podinar? It's a cross between a podcast and webinar, interview style, like a podcast, and with an audience where you can ask questions, like a webinar. So we do like to engage with our audience. We'll be giving you opportunities to engage throughout the session today. What we're going to talk about today is how team coaching differs from other ways of working with a team, ways in which a coach can develop their capacity to hold and work with differences in a team. To me, like that's there's something very, very prescient about that, if that's the word I want. How a coach can prepare a team for coaching. Some of the most challenging aspects of coaching a team and how to navigate those challenges. We'll talk about what real team coaching means and what it looks like, and why team coaching is the future of coaching. So with that, I'll give my guest a proper introduction. So this is Georgina Woudstra. She's much more than an executive coach. She's a chief executive coach. She's got more than 30 years experience and a proven track record in coaching CEOs and executive boards, as well as senior leaders and top teams. She's also the founder and principal of Team Coaching Studio, an organization dedicated to creating great team coaches around the world. She's a global advocate, leader, and shaper in the coaching profession in the field of team coaching, and her book, Mastering the Art of Team Coaching, a comprehensive guide to unleashing the power, purpose, and potential in any team, is a team coaching bestseller. Yay. Georgina, I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Hello, Allison. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, is there anything you want to say as we start off?
I'm just so thrilled to be here today with you all to talk about a subject that's really dear to my heart, team coaching, but also to meet so many colleagues from around the world, from different geographies. And it's Friday evening here in the UK, so I'm kind of winding down for the weekend as you're waking up for the day. I love that experience of different time zones, different spaces we're in our lives. And in a way, you're role modeling here, Alison. You're bringing together difference and enabling us to have a place where we can explore that. I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. So it's clear from how you talk about it that you have a real passion for team coaching. What is it about team coaching that is a joy and a love for you?
So many of the challenges that we're experiencing in the world, whether it's at the meta level, like climate change or wars that are happening, or whether it's the struggle for organizations to continually create sustainable futures, even down to families and relationships. So much of it comes down to our humanity and our capacity to interrelate. And when I think I've been an executive coach for 30 years, and I think back across so many of those conversations, what clients often bring is not their own issue. It's an issue between themselves and another entity. in leadership, it's often issues around their team or individual, how to engage individuals on their team, or clashes between their team and another team. So many times I've thought, this conversation that I'm having with you, client, needs to be had with the people who are involved in the room. And with the state of the world and the state of challenges we're facing, I believe passionately that the only way we're going to solve the problems we're facing today is with greater collaboration, is by people getting together to solve problems together, to create opportunities together. We've been through a phase for the last 20 years or more, 20 to 30 years, of focusing on the individual. Awaken the giant within. You can achieve your goals. Self-development. But really what we need as a world now, as a universe now, is us development. We need to shift from I to we. And as coaching, coaches stand so much for development, learning and development. I think coaches around the world are at the forefront of that shift from I to we. And to me, that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I love your languaging of the shift from I to we. That feels really important. Yeah. Yeah. Will you just say a little bit more about how team coaching relates to the shift from I to we?
Yeah. I guess one way of thinking about it is the difference between group coaching and team coaching, or individual coaching and team coaching. Individual coaching is often about the development of that individual leader, or life coaching about the individual life. Group coaching is a little bit like action learning. The client are the individuals in the group, and the individuals are benefiting from a group learning experience, like being on a workshop or a course. They're benefiting from the contact of others, but the goals are individual learning goals. And I take my learning away and off I go and do my own thing with it. In team coaching, there's collective goals. There are interdependencies. And it's saying that, so rather than putting our lens on the individual in the system and saying, let's understand this individual's background and what makes up this individual and their story, we're looking for the story of we, the idea that that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So what is that collective essence? What is the potential of operating as a collective? And therefore, as team coaches, we're leaning into the collective rather than trying to build intense relationships with each individual in the team. We can talk a bit more about that as we go through the conversation today. I think we'll probably come back up.
Yeah. There's so much that it's really landing with me about the story of we, and the ability of the coach to be with the collective. To me, like that's like the big difference maybe between individual coaching. Well, can you talk a little bit about how you see team coaching as the same or different from coaching an individual?
Yeah, I certainly can. And many coaches are affiliated in some way with a professional body like the International Coaching Federation. And the ICF's definition of coaching is partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. It's about an individual. But if we change that to partnering in a co-creative and reflective process with a team, and its dynamics and relationships in a way that inspires them to maximize their abilities and potential, then the team as an entity is the client, not the individuals in the team. But that comes into the very heart of what team coaching is, because when I see people who are trained as individual coaches start to work with a team, I see their lens on the individuals in the system. So they say, what do you think about this situation? We've been talking about Alison. Thank you. Dana, what do you think about this situation? Deborah, what do you think? And they relate in and out to each individual in the system, like you do in running a workshop. So that's accessing the sum of, that's accessing the parts, not the whole. So in team coaching, we're looking to get team members to talk with each other and to come to a unified meaning. And that's a different skill in terms of how you activate that in a team. Yeah.
You want to say more about that?
Yeah.
that skill and how to activate that in a team?
Yeah, so simple thing for many of you who trained as coaches, perhaps you know the GROW model, something like that. It comes up in every coach training, doesn't it? The GROW model, whether you use it or not, there's an idea that we partner with a client to identify what the client wants to work on the session and what the client wants to get out of that session. Now, in many conferences I've spoken at, I'd say to people, you do it here, put your hand up if you are a coach. Let me see a show of hands. There's a few people putting their hand up there. Thank you. Oh, it's nice to get a response. It's great. So when you work with a client, how many of you, let's say your coaching session is 2 hours long and starting at 10 in the morning. How many of you go, okay, at 10 o'clock, we're going to do this. At 10 past 10, we're going to do that. At 10:40, this is what we're going to do. 11 o'clock, we're going to do that. Keep your hands up if that's what you do. So a couple of people bring an agenda for the client, structure or design an agenda. In coaching philosophies, it's the client's agenda. It's the client's agenda. And we follow the client's agenda. So when I do the same thing and say, how many people here work with teams in team coaching? Yeah, there's a few hands up. So how many of you who are working with teams in team coaching have an agenda? Go at 9 o'clock, we're going to do this, 10 o'clock, we're going to do that. Yeah. So something has shifted for many people in their mindset. Suddenly the agenda becomes that of the intervener. And I think that's because our role models for team intervention are people who've done team facilitation, team away days, team training. We're not following the team's agenda. We are trying to control the design and the flow. And the moment we do that, we stop the team from doing the work. You know, they're in the conversation rather than they are orchestrating the conversation. And so it takes a different skill to work with a team and to bring the essence of coaching to life. I'm a big fan of Sir John Whitmore. Have you heard of Sir John Whitmore? He wrote a book called Coaching for Performance, which is often referred to in coach training. And John talked about coaching being about creating awareness, inviting responsibility, choice and responsibility. So we create awareness and then we put that awareness back to the client. This is what you've said. This is what I've heard you say. This is what I've felt in presence with you. What do you make of that, client? What do you want to do with that new awareness? What choices are you going to make? And that's the sort of the cadence of an individual coaching session. And team coaching needs to be the same, but it's way more complex if you're asking those questions. If you're asking a question one person, it's a lot more simple than a team of 8 people, say, where you're likely to get 8 different answers. So this is where the skill comes in of what we call real team coaching, as distinct from facilitation or training.
Yeah. So what is the, I mean, when I think about working emergently, and I'm teeing off something Heather Lehman said, and something I sense from what you're saying is like, if we work with a team the way we work with an individual, we're working with what's emerging.
Yes.
And to me, that's petrifying.
How come? How
You
come
know,
it's
yeah,
petrifying? What is it for
I can
you?
do that with an individual,
Yeah.
and I do that. I feel good about doing that.
Mm.
I suppose, and I don't work with teams, and I don't work
Yeah.
with teams by choice. And I suspect the reason I've chosen, and I might, frankly, I might choose differently now, but in the past, the reason I've chosen not to work with teams is because I felt like I needed to somehow do something with or figure something out about what the team's saying. And it's just like that. I have to do something with or figure something out that can get in the way of individual coaching.
Mm.
I'm getting that that's what gets in the way of team coaching.
Mm.
Is feeling like you have to do something with or figure something out with what arises.
Yeah. And as I listen to you there, I'm thinking back to when I started coaching 30 years ago. My first clients, oh my goodness, did I feel responsibility to add value, to bring answers, or to ask that, magic question that's going to unlock everything. And so my attention then was back on how I'm performing, not on the client. And as you practice coaching, you're really learning to trust the process. You're learning to tune into the client, to let go of answers needing to look a certain way, to let go of trying to control results. And that can take many, many hours of practice in individual coaching, as I'm sure many people know. Well, it takes a lot of practice to let go of control and allow the team system to emerge. But to do that, we need to create some conditions so that that emergence is safe emergence rather than uncontrolled or highly conflicted, out of control emergence. So there are some skills to do with it. Sometimes we can't just go straight in and work emergently. We have to lay some ground, or the team may not be ready for that. Might not be ready for team coaching. They might be ready for team facilitation or team training or team consultancy. Give me the answers. You're the expert. Come on, you tell us. They're not looking for coaching there. They're looking for consultancy. So let's be clear about what we're offering with our interventions and the purpose of those interventions, and not confuse it by using coaching as a sort of bucket name for umbrella name for other skills. If you're running a workshop in team trust and you're using Stephen Covey's trust model and you're teaching the model and then you're running some exercises on it, that's not coaching, is it? You're running a workshop. Be clear.
So I can imagine that what most leaders know to ask for is they know to ask for consulting, they can know to ask for a workshop, they can know to ask for facilitation. That's what they know to ask for. And I'm curious, like, what is it your clients or the clients of the people you train, however you want to do this, who it just seems like it'd be rare that they'd actually ask for team coaching because they don't know that it's a thing. So I'm curious, what do your clients come to you with? What do they think they're wanting? And then how do you get to something that's team coaching?
Sure. Well, first thing I do is forget about the label, because team coaching is becoming, the latest thing. It's getting talked about a lot, at least in some geographies and locations. But what clients mean by team coaching is anything, because it's an immature discipline. Although coaching's a mature discipline, and many organizations know what coaching is, and they understand that it's not training or teaching or performance management or all those things. So they've learned that. We haven't learned that yet. So tune out from what they're calling it. They'll call it whatever they like, and listen to what they're asking for. So I had a client a few weeks ago say, would you come work with my team we really need to get on the same page around our vision and to align around our strategy for the next period in time. What have we got in there? We've got an instrumental outcome, a vision and strategy. They've got a day for it. They need to get it by a deadline. That's not coaching, that's facilitation. I manage the process so that you can have the conversation you need and get to the outcome. They're not learning about how they get themselves there. They're doing the work and I'm making it easier for them. So that's facilitation. We need to learn how to problem solve. So I could go, okay, well, I could run a problem solving workshop. Here's some problem solving frameworks. Let's workshop those and maybe apply them to a couple of things. Bit of a combination of training, perhaps with a coach approach. Now, this is what I often get, is I get a phone call which says, can you work with our team? Can you help? I've hired the best people in the business. I've got such a strong team. They're brilliant people. I'm really thrilled about that. So why can't they work together? Why can't they work together as a team? Or they're so focused on their own individual departments or functions. You know, they like being king of their own castle, but they won't work together towards corporate goals or the things we need them to work with. And the landscape that we're facing is so complex. I can't lead this alone as chief exec. We have to, you need the whole team to focus on creating a sustainable future where the organization can flourish. And you know, that is the zone that I think team coaching is amazing for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Did you hear the difference in those?
I did. So one was very clearly about how to get this team working together and performing, team coaching,
Yeah.
versus come and do this, help me do this thing, help me do this bit of work, or help me learn this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the difference is task or content. You know, if you're there to manage the process so the team can focus on the task, then you are facilitating or training. Yeah. But if the team need to learn how to, then that's really coachable. You've got real clear learning goals there for the team around what we need to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And that's where you can do phenomenal work, because you build in sustainability. You know, coaching is about sustainable transformation change, not peak experience moments that workshops can be. Sure, we've all been on workshops where we go, wow, that was the best thing I've ever done. And a week later, you've forgotten about it. You know, that's a peak contact experience, you know, within the workshop. Whereas in coaching, we're aiming for the peak contact experience to be what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Exactly.
the change that happens in the real world.
Yeah.
So when it's a how, we need to learn how. It's about the team's processes, about how they work together. And that's absolutely brilliant for coaching, because you can take it into the here and now, not just talk about what they're going to do when they're back in their meetings and how they're going to behave differently when they're back in their meetings. You bring it into the now and go, hey, let's do this. Let's try this.
Yeah.
Should I give you an example?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So one particular team, a new chief executive who started working with this organization and team last year, said to me, this organization is very traditional, very hierarchical. People lead their own functions and departments. They're little mini empires, their functions and departments. But the situation of what the future needs for us is so demanding that this organization needs a corporate focused top team, not a team of managers who are looking down into the organization. So I want team coaching to help the team make that transition. And so it started with a phase of exploring. Let's find out really here and explore where their frame of reference is and what their history's been and what's worked about that history, and surface what needs to change in order to deliver these development goals of working together more corporately. And naturally, when you focus on that and ask questions about that, you get a lot of resistance. This is the way we've always done it. It's worked before. So we work with that and invite the team to talk about that in more depth. As they talk about it, we surface that it's new for them. Some of them have never worked on corporate goals. They're just, I'm a head of children's services, director of children's services. I've never worked on corporate facing goals. I feel out of my depth. I don't know how to contribute. So I asked them, well, what do you do at the moment in your teams when you're talking about something that isn't related to children's services in your team meetings? And they said, well, usually what happens is somebody, reports are all presented. We're meant to have read those reports beforehand. Recommendations are made in those reports. We have 10-minute slots on our agenda, and we either agree or we disagree with the recommendations. The challenge is that somebody's done so much work on creating that report that nobody wants to turn them down, and so we just run with it. Well, what's the issue with that? So I ask. You say, well, the problems nobody understands. We don't know what the problems are that we've got to resolve. We've got to stop trying to just present reports and make decisions in 5 minutes. We need to have more time to really understand the problems that we're dealing with. As a children's services director, that's the world I know. I don't know the rest of the world. I need time to understand before being asked to contribute a view. So the learning goal became for the team to slow down, to speed up, to do more collective sense making upstream, not just sign off reports downstream. But that was a whole different cultural change for their way of working as a team. They decided to come up with 5 big strategic goals, big strategic issues that the organization would need to tackle. One team member took leadership of each of those goals, corporate-wide goals. And then they led conversations of exploring. And that came about by me coaching them through asking questions and saying, let's experiment. So what's a conversation you need to have strategically that you haven't had space for? My offer to you as experiment is to talk about it for the next 15 minutes without trying to come to any conclusion or solution, but to collectively create meaning together, like you were building a story together. Let's see where that goes. So with team coaching, we use a lot of experiments to bring the issue they're working on into the here and now, build some capacity in the here and now, and then expand that experiment till it becomes part of their way of working. Now, a year on, that's gone not just within the organization, they're using that way of working across the political side of the organization as well. This is a local government organization. None of that did I teach. I didn't bring in any methodologies. I just use what's emerged in the room. And invite them into an experiment around what better or different would be. That experiment might come from me, it might come from them. It doesn't have to work, the experiment. We just go, hey, look at that. What sense do you make of that? Just like we would in coaching.
That's super helpful. So let's give some folks a chance to ask questions. We have some questions in the chat box, I know. Richard, I see your hand.
Thank you. Hello, Georgina. This is
Hello,
really
Richard.
interesting. One of the things that I am curious about of 100 that you're bringing up is when I listened to Dave Snowden talk about teams and the distinction between teams and crews. you caused me to think about crews again, like in an operating theater.
Yeah.
And in an operating theater, the goal, I'm thinking, is obvious. It's the person whom everybody is there to take care of.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is, do you picture a coherent team that's working well toward a corporate vision is sort of like a crew in a sense that comes together in a way that we think of people in a crew fighting a fire or taking care of a person in an operating theater or something like that?
It's a beautiful example, Richard. Thank you. And one that Amy Edmondson writes about well in her book Teaming, which is, it's a different kind of team because it's a team that's brought together for a very clear, focused and precise piece of work, like flying an airplane from A to B, yeah, or delivering an operation. And in teaming, everybody really needs to be very, very clear on their role. And whilst there is some unpredictability, there's a relatively high amount of predictability. We know what we need to do. We can diagnose. We know how that role is meant to be executed. And we have processes already codified into the team every step of the way. Now, organizational teams often don't seem to work that way. Their processes are not well developed. So they don't necessarily know, okay, we're having this conversation about how we're going to create efficiencies and cost saving. Everybody's just randomly throwing in thoughts. You see this sort of popcorn conversation happening all the time. What happens to all those thoughts? Who makes a decision, or who pulls on a thread and says, that's the one we need to work on? And so in executive teams or management teams, that's often a different phenomenon we're working on, is building in those processes, but not in a prescribed way where I'm saying this is how you should work or how you should make decisions, in a way that's born from the team's awareness and then taking responsibility for choices they're going to make.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Great. Love that differentiation between a team and a crew.
Mm.
Camelia.
Hi.
Hello.
I put this question in the chat about team coaching. Can it be like when we talk about, I understand the differences between teams and groups, but I took a course once in university for group, team, and relationship coaching.
Oh.
And there were a lot of similarities. There were differences and similarities. But when I think about, I worked with teams for 30 years. I worked in IT. So I grew up working in teams.
Yeah.
Some of the teams were good. Some of them weren't so good. Some of them was the leader of the team, or I was a member of the team. And so I saw a lot of need that teams have. And so I was thinking, like, can team coaching be a hybrid of all these things? If you go into a company and you make a proposal, or you just like saying, I'm just going to coach and nothing else, or is it a hybrid of coaching, workshops, and facilitation? Because I found that even in individual coaching, that all my clients aren't at the same place. I coach high potentials. They need more guidance than senior leaders need. So I find myself on the fringes of coaching because I have to prepare them to get them ready to receive coaching. So I'm thinking, like, some of the teams I've seen have been a mess. And so how do you go in there and just let stuff emerge and just have chaos without having some kind of structure, or building some kind of structure for them to hold on to grow?
Yeah.
And that's a long question, but I hope you got the gist of it.
It's a fabulous question. It links to a podcast I was doing earlier on today. Totally. I mean, it would be like coaching a new graduate to be a leader of a 50-person team. That example you've given. Whereas what that new graduate might need is some training, some conceptual framework. So I don't recommend that team coaching is the hammer that you use for every single nail. And that's the problem, that people are wheeling it out as the panacea in some ways. But I also don't recommend that we call it coaching when it's training, because we're really confusing clients around, this is a hammer and this is a nail, this is a screwdriver and this is a screw. Let's be clear around the intention. And I heard you talk there, Pamelia, in a way that showed me that you have clarity on why you're choosing which intervention. These young people may need some training, some frames of reference. It would just go all over the place, chaos if it was emergent. Yeah. So we've got, is it about knowledge building? Does it need conceptual frameworks? Maybe it's training. Is the team mature enough? Is there enough psychological safety, enough of a container? And, this is a lot more complexity than we can go into in one Podinar. One of the things we teach and think about is the strength of the work you can do emergently is 100% down to the strength of the container you can build. And sometimes building a container takes a long time. I worked with a very, very highly conflicted team last year of owners of a hedge fund. Had been mired in deep conflict for several years. It took me several months just to get them in the room together. Yeah, and then some facilitation. So I'm managing the safety and boundaries for another period of time till I could get to coaching. However, some people just say, oh, I have a hybrid. And what I'm finding is they're letting themselves off the hook for doing what gives the coach safety. It's, I'm trying to manage exactly what Alison was saying earlier on. I'm scared of this. I can do it with one-to-one, but I can't do it with a team because when we're faced with a group, suddenly our performance need can cut in. Our need to look great, our need to have the answers, our need to be clever or to deliver value, our need to be in control. So when it's for our need, we need to do work on ourselves, which takes time. Don't just jump off a cliff without a parachute, but own that it's for our need. And then get really clear on for yourself on when would I recommend training? When would I recommend consulting? When would I recommend coaching? If you look on the ICF website on the or Google their new team coaching competency framework, they've actually got a nice little grid in there that's quite helpful about the different interventions or different modalities, as they call it, and who owns, what's the purpose of them, and who's the owner. So it's good. It's good ground. It's not the answer or the formula, because we all need to do that for ourselves, but it's quite good ground to help us be really intentional about what mode of intervention we're using for what situation with the team. And one more thing I'll say on that, Pamelia, for I can see other questions, but one more thing I'll say is one of the challenges is if imagine in one-to-one coaching, if you start out in one-to-one coaching, giving your client answers, here's how you should think about leadership, here's what good leadership looks like, let's evaluate you, I'll tell you what the gaps are, here's some training courses or some ideas to develop yourself around these gaps that you've got. You're leading. People learn, relationally, we learn about people by how we dance with them, by the patterns that occur between us. So if we use a hybrid model and we spend a lot of time teaching or consulting, we have taught the team that is our role in relationship. So it can take quite a lot of work to unhook that, a lot of contracting, to really consciously pass the baton back to the team of owning their own agenda, owning their own processes. Otherwise they go, well, we've done this before, why aren't you doing it now? You're the expert, you have the answers. Yeah. So it needs some real attention to that.
Yeah, great, thank you. Rhea.
Hi, thank you for this amazing conversation. And I have an example, like a team of salespeople, when they have a rate or competition rate between each other. And how could I collaborate them when they are in unstoppable competition between them and this KPI inside their salary?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. Because you're saying, how can I cooperate them?
Yeah, right.
And therefore you're wanting them to change. If you think about the philosophy of coaching, coaching is when the client wants to change, not when we want them to change.
Yeah.
So if they want to change, Rhea, and they want to work together on collective goals, and they want to stop competing or reduce the competition, then that's coachable. But you can't make them, the coaching isn't the right tool to use to try and change someone for how the outside thinks they need to be. That was probably more of a training or a leadership kind of tool in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're really welcome. It's a great question.
So appreciate the question, because that can be how we think about it, right? We can well,
Yeah.
how do I change them? How do I accomplish this? How do I create this outcome?
Yes, yeah. like sometimes clients try to get us to coach performance management, don't they? They want the remedial, fix someone, or fix them or we'll fire them. You do it, coach, because the manager doesn't want to do it. It's the team leader's role, or if there isn't a team leader, their collective role to determine what those shifts need to be. Our role is to help them reflect on the value of how they're being together, and to identify where the changes might be that would make them even better for where they want to get to by their determination, for what success looks like to them, not by some frame that we bring from the outside.
Yeah, reflect on how they want to be together, how they might be together better. Yeah. Okay. So Serge.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Georgina about a situation that I am managing as a coach. So this is a owner of a company, a financial company, 9 team members. We had a team process last year. She had 5 team members, extreme high rotation in the staff, very, very controlling personality from the leader. And we've done some work on that. And last year there was a lot of feedback from the team on it was almost a toxic leader they were describing.
Okay, yeah.
So now she wants to repeat the process, first interviewing the team members and then having a team gathering or 2, at the end over 2 months. And the thing is, first of all, and she's basically, her main point is that there's not enough leadership from the team members that could prevent her from working 24/7, because she's basically doing that at the risk of her own health. So the initiative is coming from the leader, but what I know I'm going to find is a lot of feedback and input from the team members. And I'm wondering what is the best way actually to maximize, the impact. And I think that team coaching can offer some solutions. Maybe a couple of thoughts from you would be useful.
So is it all right if I ask a question or two, Serge?
Please.
Yeah. And is it Sergey or Serge?
Serge.
Oh, I'm glad I asked.
Or Serge.
Serge. How would you describe the culture of the wider organization? Is it top down? Is it?
It's pretty much top
flat?
down. It's top down, centered to one person.
Yeah.
And as soon as she hired, the pattern I've noticed is that the people that she's hiring that are higher or close to her authority, she gets impatient, and for some reason, they cannot stay. So she's losing her second COO.
Yeah. And the wider organization is a top down
I'm sorry.
culture?
There is no wider organization. This
Oh,
is the
okay. This is
organization.
She's the founder.
Yes,
Okay.
she's the founder.
She's the founder.
Yes.
Yeah. But the culture within that organization that she has founded is a top down. The power runs top down in the organization. Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. And in your team sessions that you're looking to do, to what degree would you say there's an appetite from the team to have those sessions?
Oh, everybody's eager to talk.
There we go. Yeah.
Very eager. And interestingly, last year there was a huge enthusiasm for people to come and come up with their feedback. The problem is that there's only one left from the 5 of last year.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So they've got some good experience in the background of what the norms are, in a way.
True.
Of how this plays out. So this isn't a full consult, so again, now I would ask more questions to really understand, because I think sometimes in these things, there's a few team coaching programs out there which are kind of described in a very formulaic way and lead you to, even with a script in a box, and they so miss the point that you can't process every team through the same steps, and out the other end is a perfect team. Yeah, there's so many nuances. So when we have quick conversations like this, it's lacking that richness of context.
Absolutely.
But a few thoughts that come up for me is one is I do my best to remove my own judgment about how it should be.
Okay.
And it's really hard, but it's really important to take away the good, bad, right, wrong about how she is leading. It is what it is. And there will be some positives from how it is and some negatives from how it is. So I look to create a container, and by that I mean a boundaried space where I make enough relational contact with people in the room that they know they can speak out.
Okay.
And that it'll be met well, even if it's even if the behavior is not very helpful coming from the people, or the articulation is not very clear, it'll be met well. And through doing that, the container gets stronger for the capacity to bring in difference. Because what you're talking about here really is difference. The leader's style to the style others might prefer about how power is used. And then find a way to surface it. So I might ask questions like, how does decisions get made here? But with curiosity, not with judgment. It's really your presence and your tone of voice. I might do that through inviting an experiment. Say, take 10 minutes to talk about something in this team that is really important to you, something really meaningful. Talk with each other, and I'm just going to observe. If it's virtual, it's wonderful because I can put my camera off, so they can't be trying to feel the conversation through me. And then I get to observe how power is working, how the exchange is working. Then I can come back in and interrupt. And I've got choice points here. I can ask them to reflect on their process. What did you notice about how power worked here? How decisions making worked? What did you notice about who spoke and who didn't? How airtime was used? Without judgment, no inference of judgment, just creating awareness. And then I might ask, or I might share my observation. I noticed only 2 out of 5 people spoke. I noticed my own curiosity about what the others were thinking. I noticed people were wonderfully forthcoming with their own ideas. And I found myself wondering about how well you were absorbing each other's ideas, how well you were listening to each other's ideas. How about an experiment? So here you play along the lines of whatever is contracted, what the outcomes you want. You can say, so how about you go back into your conversation and try slowing the conversation right down speak more slowly, make sure you've heard what somebody says before you build on it. How about that? Something like that.
Okay.
And then let them speak again. And then you interrupt again. So what did you notice? What worked? What didn't work? Without attachment. So we're just creating awareness. We're working in the here and now, and we're letting them choose the meaning they make from it. And we're flowing with where the energy wants to flow. Or we're inviting their energy to flow. I don't use those words with the team, but that's the underlying idea. The same as we work with in one-to-one coaching.
Okay. This is priceless. Extremely valuable. I'm sure there is more layers, as you said.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely follow up with that. Thank you so much.
I'd love to hear how it goes.
I will. I'll let Alison.
Hold you to that.
That's a great search.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Take one last question from Bo. Hey, Bo.
I want to read you a quote and ask for your thoughts. Someone mentioned the idea of this being like an operating room. Well, I've been responsible for an OR, for an emergency department, and for leadership teams, part of and leading them. And I have this quote that I use when I'm doing trainings that is from a surgeon. She's actually the first Navajo woman surgeon in the US. So you can imagine her experiences.
Yeah.
She says, my ideal operating room would have a team of people who work together smoothly and easily, with respect for one another and their patients. Each member, no matter what their rank, would be considered important and invaluable. Now, every time I read that, to me, it's the essence of what a dream team really is.
Wow.
And I'm just curious what you think about that, and how do you coach a team that is already high performing, but wants to get to another level?
Well, there's a number of different questions in there. I think the first one was, that's okay. My response was, wow, goosebumpy. What a beautiful quote. And what an inspiring quote to share with a team, because it's not saying to them the definition of team excellence is, and therefore, whether you say it or not, here's how you should be. There's ownership in there. If this is my idea of a brilliant team, and invites awareness and around what a picture of success might be. What would be a beautiful, most amazing, most flourishing team to you, team client? So that's an important part of our work, I think. I think another part of your question was, how do you work with a team who's already high performing? Oh, I'd love another hour on that one. This depends on your philosophical frame of reference and on your views as a coach on how change happens and how learning and growth happens. I'm fairly informed, not wholly, but fairly informed by Gestalt. And in Gestalt, we have this idea of polarities. So where something is well developed, where there's a well-developed capacity, there may be others that then go into the shadow. They're less well-developed or less well attended to. And sometimes the problems that a team's trying to tackle, or the reason they're there for coaching, is they need to tap into the less well-developed. Now, the thing in Gestalt is we don't hold that as weaknesses. We think of the whole exists. It's like light exists across the universe, but as the moon and sun turn together, some things go into darkness. It's all there available to us. So let's hold the operating assumption that it's all there and see what the high-performing attributes are, what's well in this team, what's functioning brilliantly, and what might be not attended to, what might be the cost of those highly developed attributes. So, for example, a team of experts bringing forth brilliant ideas. And the cost of that is they're much more attuned to their own ideas and they are interested in others, perhaps. So in order to create generative solutions, they might need to adjust where they're putting their attention. And that's a practice that a team can develop. What do you think about what I've said, Bo?
Oh,
What
I
resonates?
could use an
What-
hour also, but one thing that I remember that's about experts and novices and amateurs is that engineers, when they graduate, get a ring, which is supposedly made from the steel of the Titanic,
Oh,
so that it reminds them of what hubris can do. The unsinkable Titanic went down, not per se because of the ship, but because the way the ship was used. The ship was used with the confidence that it was unsinkable. So it was an interaction between the two. Some people say, yes, the Titanic was built by experts and the Ark was built by amateurs.
mm,
The other thing I would say, just briefly, there's a book called The Fourfold Way, which looks at indigenous ways of leadership. The four paths: the way of the warrior, the visionary,
mm.
the healer, and I'm forgetting the fourth. But in each of them, as she goes through, she talks about the shadow side as well as
Yeah.
the positive side. You mentioned that, it immediately sprang to mind. It is a fascinating non-Western look at what
Yeah.
leadership really means. And I can
Beautiful.
not recommend it highly enough.
Well, these wonderful, inspiring ideas, I could see them being so valuable as part of a team coaching practice. And whether you're team coaching or getting into it, Bo, you're bringing to life ideas that help teams tap into their potential, ideas
just
that may
ordered your book.
inspire. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. So you got a couple of requests, Bo. One is for the name of the person of the quote, and another is for the name of the book. So if you have a minute, if you could put that in the chat, that'd be great. So Georgina, we're going to wrap it up now. And we've had many requests for a part 2. The chat box is full of a part 2. So if you'd be down for that, we totally would be. And it sounds like this audience would be as well.
Yeah, I'd be really happy to do that. And maybe I'll even bring a colleague of mine so we can share a richer field of ideas. Is it all right, Alison, if I just share with people that what we have 1,000 team coaches in a community of practice? It's anyone's welcome to join.
Yeah. And Dana is going to put the link to that coaching community in the chat box now. So anything more you want to say about that, Georgina, about your coaching community?
Yes. I think these days it's so important when learning skills to go beyond this idea of just going on a training course. In a way that mirrors what I'm talking about, the organizations have been doing, running training courses and expecting that the concepts to sustainably transform an organization. So we created a community recognizing that whilst we provide courses, so much of the learning happens within community, in relationship with other people. And we just got over 1,000 members this week, which is just incredible. We have the arena sessions where we go and simulate teams and practice. We have webinars, we have team coaching cafes. We have community leads on different subjects like diversity and inclusion, on internal, in-house team coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a community-led community, not a top-down community. So you definitely get to hear much more breadth of voice than my view, which is the whole idea to create a diverse field of what team coaching is becoming as it unfolds over the next decade.
Yeah. So if you're interested, that's the place to go. Want to let you all know before we break here, we have another free class coming up here on December 7th on uncovering joy,
Wow.
exploring the emotion that changes everything. We've been looking at, for the last 20 years, what makes it difficult for us to connect with ourselves and others deeply. And what we've learned from that work is that our capacity for joy, or how full our joy bucket is directly related to our capacity for stress, our capacity for conflict, our capacity to be with complexity. And so joy truly is, and not different from happiness, joy truly is the emotion that can change everything. And yet our clients, and maybe even we, put it on hold and think we'll do this another day, or I don't have time for this, or I've even forgotten what will give me joy. So if you have some interest in learning about how you can help your clients fill their joy buckets, how you can fill your joy buckets so that you can meet the demands of this life we have, I hope you'll join us. It's a free class, December 7th. Dana will be putting it in the chat box, and yeah, join us. And perhaps we'll explore this stunning, really love. I spent some time with this elegant model of team coaching that the Team Coaching Studio holds. Perhaps we'll be able to talk about that more in part 2. It's brilliant.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much, Alison.
Yeah, if you'd like to learn more about Georgina and the Team Coaching Studio, you can find her at teamcoachingstudio.com. We've got her email address here, and of course the community of coaches. And next month, join us on November 18th with my special guest, Pamela McLean from the Hudson Institute. We're going to be talking about the maturation journey of a coach and exploring our inner landscape. So with that, thank you so much, Georgina. I'm so grateful to you.
Thank you.
This rich time together. And thank all of you for joining. You make our community rich and thriving, and so happy to do it.